So welcome. Our online service is about to begin. At this time, please take a moment to find a candle somewhere in your home so that we can all participate in the chalice lighting. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and it's one of the ways that we all can feel connected. It's nice to know that there are hundreds of lighted candles nestled within chalices in homes throughout the region. The announcements this morning: next Sunday is Easter, and we hope that you'll join us for an uplifting and inspiring service. One of the things that we ordinarily do on Easter Sunday is the flower communion. Obviously, we can't do that like we traditionally do. So what Kate is asking us to do instead is to create a communion of photos of you holding beautiful flowers. So please take a photo of you with a flower that has meaning to you. You can either take a new photo or provide one that is in your family files. And please email it to office manager, that's office mgr at quuf.org. If you have any difficulty sending those photos, please feel free to contact Kate. What's going to happen is if enough photos are contributed to this project, we're going to make a slideshow of all the photos and show them during the offertory on Easter Sunday. It should be fun. Some of you are still having trouble receiving the Friday update. Please contact our administrator, Robin, if you need any help in this regard. And lastly, please know that the staff at QUUF, they continue to work, but they're doing so from home. They meet every morning for a video call, and they're finding creative ways to connect with everyone in the congregation. So please know that they are still there for you. It's Palm Sunday, 2020, and like millions of faith communities around the world, we have moved our services online to minimize the potential person-to-person contact and the spread of the virus. And while we eagerly await the day when we can once again gather together in the sanctuary, let us call forth our imaginations and our creativity this morning to build sanctuary in our homes, to be present with each other in spirit, if not in body, and for the next hour, help usher our hearts and minds towards an attentiveness that is nourishing, healing, communal, and whole. My name is Joseph Bednarik, and I will be leading the service this morning from Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Port Townsend, Washington. If you're visiting us virtually this morning, welcome. One of the features of our online service is the comments section. If you're watching this on your Facebook page or on YouTube, you're invited to say hello in the comments section and tell us your name and where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if anyone is attending this service this morning, if you find this service useful, you are welcome to share links with your friends and family. So welcome, one and all. As is our tradition in our congregation, we begin the service with an ancient sound.
Please join in singing our call to community song, There Is a Love. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
Thank you, Bertram, and thank you, everyone. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. One candle, upright and bright. One candle among thousands, each casting light and warmth, and reminding that we are here, we're alive, bright, shining, in this moment, and able to touch flame to wick and bring more light into the world. At this time, please join me for the lighting of our chalices with the words of Anna Sweer, a Polish poet who served as a nurse during the Warsaw Uprising in World War II. This poem is entitled, "There is a Light in Me." Whether in daytime or in nighttime, I always carry inside a light. In the middle of noise and turmoil, I carry silence. Always, I carry light and silence. In this era, when clean water is precious, where clean, warm water is so vital in our communal effort to flatten the curve, the opening words this morning are from verse 8 from the Tao Te Ching, translated by Port Townsend's own Red Pine. The best are like water, bringing help to all without competing, choosing what others avoid, and thus they approach the Tao. Dwelling with earth, thinking with depth, helping with kindness, speaking with honesty, governing with peace, working with skill, and moving with time. And because they don't compete, they aren't maligned.
Good morning. It's unusual to be singing these hymns without all of your faces in front of me, but I'm really grateful for the miracle, let's say, of technology, that we can all be together and be safe. Our first song today is "This Little Light of Mine." This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm going to let it shine. Building up a world, I'm going to let it shine. Building up a world, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
And now it's time for All Ages with Beau.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be here with you. Today, Shaggington and I have another story that we'd like to share, and this one really fits into what Joseph is going to be talking about, which is the interconnected web of life, our seventh principle. And this story is about how we are still connected and still can show love and affection and community with one another, even when we are not in the exact same space, which is kind of perfect for the moment we're in right now. So this story this morning is called The Invisible String. So sit back wherever you are, take a deep breath, and join me in this story. The Invisible String by Patrice Karst. Liza and Jeremy, the twins, were asleep one calm and quiet night. Suddenly, it wasn't so calm and quiet, and it began to rain very hard. Thunder rumbled until it got so loud that it woke them up. "Mommy, Mommy," they cried as they ran to her. "Don't worry, you two. It's just the storm making all that noise. You can go back to bed." "We want to stay close to you," said Jeremy. "We're scared." Their mom said, "You know, we're always together, no matter what." "But how can we be together when you're out here and we're back in bed?" said Liza. Their mom held something up in front of them and said, "This is how." Rubbing their sleepy eyes, the twins came closer to see what their mom was holding. "I was about your age when my mom told me about the invisible string." "I don't see a string," said Jeremy. "You don't need to see the invisible string. People who love each other are always connected by a very special string made out of love." "But if you can't see it, how do you know it's there?" asked Liza. "Even though you can't see it with your eyes, you can feel it with your heart and know that you are always connected to everyone you love. When you're at school and you miss me, your love travels all the way along the string until I feel it tug at my heart. And when you tug it right back, we feel it in our hearts," said Jeremy. "Does Casper the cat have an invisible string?" Liza asked. "She sure does," said their mom. "And best friends like me and Lucy?" asked Liza. "Best friends too." "How far can the string reach?" "Anywhere and everywhere," their mom said. "Would it reach me even if I were a submarine captain deep in the ocean?" asked Jeremy. "Yes," said their mom, "even there." "Or a mountain climber?" "Even there." "A ballerina in France?" "Even there." "A jungle explorer?" "Even there." "How about an astronaut all the way out in space?" "Yes, even there." Then Jeremy quietly asked, "Can my string reach all the way to Uncle Brian in heaven?" "Yes, even there." "Does the string go away when you're mad at us?" "Never," said their mom. "Love is stronger than anger, and as long as love is in your heart, the string will always be there. Even when you're older and can't agree about things like what movie to see, or who gets to ride in the front seat, or what time to go to bed." "Oh, that's right. You two should really be in bed." And with that, they all laughed as their mom chased the twins back to their beds. Within a few minutes, they were asleep, and even though the storm was still making the same loud noises outside, they slept. And as they slept, they started dreaming of all the invisible strings they have, and all the strings their friends have, and their friends have, and their friends have, until everyone in the world was connected by invisible strings. And from deep inside, they now could clearly see. No one is ever alone. And I want you to remember that you are not alone. None of us is alone in this adventure that we're having. So I hope you take that to heart and recognize that we are all still very much connected and deeply entwined with all of our invisible strings in the interconnected web of our lives. Another way that we engage with our interconnected web of life is through our designated offerings. So 3 times a month, we share our plate with a local organization doing incredible work here in the community. And the first Sunday of the month, which is today, is our Hope Offering, which stands for Helping Our People Eat. This goes to our local Jefferson County Food Bank, which particularly this month has been serving more people than usual, as more and more people are food insecure and have lost their incomes. So this offering today is an incredible help to our community. We have been doing the Hope Offering for 22 years at QUUF. It is a really vital way that we live out our values and support one another. Food insecurity is not something that just happens to some of us. Food insecurity impacts all of us, either personally or through our friends and family and neighbors. So there are 2 different ways that we can give money this morning. You can see to my side, you can either go and text on your phone, and the number is above me, or you can also go to our website, www.quuuf.org, and click on Giving, and you can give on our website. Thank you so much for your generosity, and George Stanley will now play a song for you. Thank you.
I'm George Stanley, and I'm going to be playing a couple songs. First one is an instrumental, and the second one is a song by Michael Johnson called Poor Little Robin. But this one is one of my own compositions.
This is the time in our service in which we bring to our minds and carry in our hearts those who have asked us to share a personal joy or sorrow, so that as a religious community, we may hold each other more deeply in love and respect. We begin by recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life, and that our personal joys and sorrows, they're often connected to the larger world's joys and sorrows in ways that we can hardly articulate. Thus, we place a stone for the wider world community beyond our sanctuary walls, thinking in particular of each and every healthcare worker who is on the front lines or will soon be on the front lines of this growing pandemic. Nurses and doctors, orderlies and maintenance workers, administrators and volunteers. Your courage and resolve, your care and concern inspires the country and the world. We pray for your health and for abundant and appropriate supplies in meeting this pandemic. And now to our congregation, we light a candle of joy for this lovely flower arrangement, which is in celebration of Sigrid and Stan Cummings' 30th wedding anniversary. After the service, these flowers will be delivered to Sigrid and Stan's house, where they will decorate their take-out, eat-in anniversary dinner. We light a candle of joy for Kathy Camacho Carr, who was released Saturday from Harrison Hospital in Bremerton following a 2-day admission for observation for chest symptoms related to her diagnosis with COVID-19. She is continuing to recover at home, and she and Dean, who is presumed to be COVID-19 positive as well, will remain in self-quarantine for the next 2 weeks, or whatever it takes. We lit a candle of joy for the fact that Patty Miles will be returning to the office manager position beginning tomorrow. You'll recall that she has been on a prolonged medical leave due to complications arising from surgery last November. It will be fantastic to have her back in the office again. And at the same time, we are going to miss Perry Mullner, who stepped in to temporarily do Patty's job for these past 4 months. Perry, who grew up in this congregation, brought great energy and skill to the job, and we're going to miss her greatly. We are so grateful to you, Perry. So we light a candle of gratitude for you. You are going to be sorely missed. We light a candle of sorrow for the death of John Bowles, the loving partner of member Connie Ross. John died last weekend after a long battle with cancer. Due to the pandemic, there is no memorial service currently scheduled at this time. Our hearts are with Connie and their family at this time of loss. We light a candle of healing for Jack Steckman, who has viral pneumonia. He and his wife Bernie have been sick for over a week and have been self-isolated. Jack's test came back positive for COVID-19, and it's assumed that Bernie has it as well. We lit a candle of consolation for Brian Rodgers, whose Aunt Estelle died this week in Massachusetts at the age of 101. And we lit a candle for Sam Wells, a lifelong friend of Mary Tucker's, who died this week in Sacramento, California, due to COVID-19. Mary writes, "Our fathers were best friends, and my brothers and I grew up with Sam and his brother and sister and remained close to them. Sam was diagnosed with Parkinson's several years ago and wasn't able to communicate very well, but was able to live at home until hospitalized. He was much loved and will be missed." You all right? Yeah, careful. So finally, in this pre-COVID-19 world, Saturday, April 4th, was to be the installation of our called minister, Kate Lohr. An installation is a ceremony to acknowledge her as the QUUF called minister. And while this ceremony is in our future, for now, we would like to acknowledge our appreciation of Kate with a candle and a stone, bringing to mind Kate's loving and open-hearted greetings and hugs back in the day when hugs were allowed, her sense of humor, her quick and genuine expressions of appreciation, delivering groceries, hours of video calls and responding to emails, setting up caring circles, pastoral care for congregants who are sick, frightened, and wanting to help, and changing course when new information arises. Thank you, Kate. We look forward to packing this sanctuary shoulder to shoulder when we do celebrate your installation. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows that I've just shared, while also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed, but of no less importance. And let us now hold silence and breathe together. Our reading today is by Dan Gerber. Dan is a poet and an ordained Zen priest who lives in Southern California. He's presented talks and poetry readings here at Quimper UU Fellowship over the years. When this pandemic began and people started to reach out to poetry for nourishment and comfort, Dan's poem, Often I Imagine the Earth, began to circulate widely online. I love this poem, and I've read it many times to UU congregations throughout the region. Friends of the congregation, Ellie Matthews and Carl Jungman, printed a beautiful broadside of the poem. And I thought it was the perfect poem for this Sunday, and I planned on reading it. And then I thought, wait a minute, let's ask Dan to send a recording. So here is Dan Gerber reading, Often I Imagine the Earth.
I've made 2 visits to Quimper, 11 years apart, and both of them remain signal memories around which I remember most of the other things in my life. Years ago, I had the thought that if I could see the Earth through the eyes of the atoms that we are made of, there would be no possible way I could distinguish where you left off and I began. And about 10 years later, this poem occurred to me. Often I imagine the earth through the eyes of the atoms we're made of. Atoms, peculiar atoms everywhere. No me, no you, no opinions, no beginning, no middle, no end. Soaring together, like those ancient Chinese birds, hatched miraculously with only one wing, helping each other fly home. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I really look forward to the time when you are able to return to Port Townsend and share your poems with us here in the sanctuary.
This song's called Poor Little Robin, sad song by Michael Johnson. And the last verse is my own. Poor little Robin, down with the blues, she can make a grown man cry. This dirty old thing's got me on my knees, reaching for the pale blue sky. Thoughts of mine standing in line, I'm waiting for a matinee. Box kite hanging on a bedroom wall, waiting on a windy day. Dear friends, please understand, something's got a hold on me. Springtime leaves you behind, but she never really sets you free. Well, your work day's done, your day is done, you're looking for a place to be. You've already begun, you've already begun to feel lonely, oh, lonely. Poor little Robin, tears in her eyes, crying like it hurts so bad. She's got a way of making you feel you're the only friend she had. Poor little Robin, down with the blues, she can make a grown man cry. This dirty old thing's got me on my knees, I'm reaching for the pale blue sky. Now your work is done, your day is done, you're looking for a place to be. You've already begun, you reach for the sun, started again to feel lonely, oh, lonely. Poor little Robin, still down with the blues, she could make a grown man cry. This dirty old thing's got me on my knees, reaching for the pale blue sky. Dear friends, shelter in place, away from the bad virus. Don't let the isolation ever get you down, soon you will be back with us. Don't let the isolation ever get you down, soon you will be back with, soon you will be back with, soon you will be back with us.
Greetings, everyone. It is lovely to be with you this fine Sunday morning in this era of social distancing, though I prefer to call the practice distant socializing. It's a phrase that I heard a few weeks back. Now, distant socializing is a welcome turn of phrase that gets at the best of both worlds. Safe distances between physical bodies while allowing the feeling and flow of connection to continue. We need not lose what nourishes, the socializing, while adhering to the protocols focused on personal and community health. Distant socializing is akin to those long-distance phone calls that my grandparents would make when I was a young child. Every Sunday when the phone rang, and one of those old-timey phones bolted to the wall with that long, curly cord attached to the headset, my brother, sister, and I would run to the phone to talk with my grandmother and grandfather, who were 500 miles away in Chicago. Now, the details of those phone conversations, long ago forgotten, but the profound emotional memory of a little boy running to a ringing phone on a Sunday evening. Let me answer, let me answer, let me answer. It's one of the deepest and dearest treasures in my heart. It's a perfect example of distant socializing. And I bring up my grandparents because, as children, both lived through the pandemic of 1918, though my grandfather's mother, my great-grandmother, died of the flu. Both lived through the Great Depression and developed bone-deep habits of hard work and thrift. They lived through World War I, the so-called war to end all wars, and they raised their young daughter through the entirety of World War II. They witnessed the social tumult and the heartbreaking assassinations of the 1960s. They watched on their flickering TV when a human being stepped foot on the moon. They even survived disco. And my grandfather shouldered that double-edged suffering of being both a Chicago Cubs fan and a New York Yankees hater. They survived by their luck and their wits, by hard work and attentive love. And both sat at their kitchen table with furrowed brows, nodding in disbelief when their oldest grandson, yours truly, announced that he was majoring in philosophy in college. Now, my grandmother had to stop going to school after the 3rd grade, after she learned simple math and how to read, in order to help take care of her infant twin sisters. On that potato farm in Minnesota, it was enough to know your letters and numbers. This smart little 3rd grader was needed at home to work. Now, my grandmother liked to say that she earned a PhD in the School of Hard Knocks. Now, my grandfather, he graduated from 8th grade, then went off to work in the world. When I was a young boy, I would plead with him to have him tell me the stories of the orphanage, of the jobs that he had when he was a boy and a young man, working as a caddy, as a fruit vendor, as a laborer in the tannery, until one day he walked through the doorway of a factory and came out decades later with a small pension and a 25th anniversary tie clip that he had no use for. Philosophy? Grandpa asked. What that gonna do for you? Help me live a good life, I answered. My grandfather was incredulous. It's essentially the same expression that my friends and colleagues give me when they find out that I belong to a quote-unquote church and that I have a religious practice. Why do you go to church? They ask. Because it helps me live a good life, I answer. Now, I know that many Unitarian Universalists cringe at the phrases going to church and practicing a religion. More than once, after giving talks at UU congregations, congregants approach me to express in no uncertain terms their affront at my use of using religious language. I can easily imagine someone approaching me after this sermon to say, I was offended when you used the phrase going to church and practicing a religion. We're not a church, we're a fellowship. We're not practicing a religion, we're engaging 7 principles. And to those people uncomfortable with religious language, I say, I am delighted that you are here in the fellowship today to engage 7 principles, because we need you now more than ever. We need you now more than ever, your careful listening, your fierce brain, your wrestling matches over the precise meanings of words, your quick call to action, and your willingness to keep fresh batteries in your bullshit detector. Are we allowed to say that? We'll find out. And in order to open the doors of this sanctuary as wide as possible, welcome to any and all atheists and your godless universe, ruled by the theories and laws of science and your unshakable devotion to the advancement of science. I agree with you 100%. Welcome. Welcome to any and all theists and mystics and nature worshipers and your divine universe that's also ruled by the theories and laws of science, with room for holy mystery, divine love, and Gaia's deep breathing. I agree with you 100%. Welcome. And an especially warm welcome to all doubters, wonderers, wanderers, and agnostics from any and all and no faith traditions, who won't lay claim to any theological certainty or religious practice, who don't really like talking about it, frankly, but know that love feels better than hate, who know that it's ill-advised to pee in the drinking water, and who sense that the Grateful Dead were probably onto something. I agree with you 100%. Welcome. Welcome, one and all, to this sanctuary built by free people for free people, this sanctuary of wood and light. It's what we free people, as a loving congregation, choose to make of it. And so it's early spring here in the Northern Hemisphere. Spring's a highly religious time for billions of people on the planet Earth, which includes high holy days for numerous religious traditions. For Muslims, Ramadan begins later in April as they celebrate the time when God first revealed the Quran to Muhammad. The Christians among us are celebrating Palm Sunday today, with Good Friday and Easter on the near horizon. Death and resurrection, they're going to be powerful and soothing beliefs in the coming week, preached about from millions of pulpits around the world. Jewish people on every continent are preparing for the start of Passover on sundown this Thursday, because the holiday is rooted in the 10 Egyptian plagues from the book of Exodus. Again, another powerful religious story that will have even deeper meaning during the ritual feast, the Passover Seder, eaten and savored during the pandemic of 2020. The pagans, the Druids, and the unaffiliated nature lovers celebrated the vernal equinox a few weeks back, grounding their minds and their hearts, their bodies and their spirits in the ancient rhythms of earth and sun, of light increasing, plants awakening, fruit trees in blossom, and birds building nests. Spring as a time of sensual beauty and great awakening, with solace in seeing the green shoots pierce the soil. And for the merry pranksters and the holy fools among us, we celebrated April Fool's Day amidst shelter in place and flatten the curve. And a quick aside, in this time of uncertainty, when tears of anxiety are quick to surface, joy and laughter can seem in short supply. But to my mind, a vibrant religious life needs to welcome laughter. And I think back to one of the most profound religious moments that I've ever experienced, period, was in this sanctuary on an April Fool's Day that also happened to fall on a Sunday. I was running the service that day when I called all the children forward for Time for All Ages. I shared my deeply held belief about the power of laughter And then from a giant sack, I presented every child with an inflated whoopee cushion. It was the first time that many of these children had ever seen a whoopee cushion. So I explained how it worked, I explained the kind of sound it made, and I explained that the passing of gas is actually a sign of great health. And then I asked for their communal help. On the count of 3, we are all going to sit on our whoopee cushions together at the exact same moment. 1, 2, 3. We created a thunderous sound of holy gas passing. Now the congregation roared with laughter. The kids cracked up, and that laughter, that beautiful, ridiculous, ancient laughter, seeped into the wooden beams holding this sanctuary aloft. And now, as I mentioned earlier, Unitarian Universalism is a religion that practices 7 principles. Principle 1 grounds us in the inherent worth and dignity of all people. Principle 4 calls for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And the final principle, principle number 7, says this: respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. When this COVID-19 pandemic forced our region to shelter in place, and everything that I touched with my fingers was a potential vector for disease, I was told by multiple authorities to wash my hands properly and to not touch my face. Now I realized that I needed a refresher in how to quote-unquote properly wash my hands. So I risked touching my computer's keyboard, and I watched several times a 90-second instructional video from the World Health Organization. Now, to help do our part in spreading the gospel of necessary hygiene, we present from this sanctuary wise guidelines from the WHO.
Hand washing should take you about 1 minute. Use a timer or count from 1 to 10 in each of the following steps. Wet hands with water and apply enough soap to cover all surfaces of the hands. Let the water run smoothly to avoid touching the tap later on. Rub hands palm to palm to obtain a good quantity of foam. Then rub right palm over the back of left hand with interlaced fingers, and vice versa. Rub again palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked, repeating this action for each hand. Rub rotationally left thumb clasped in right palm, and vice versa. To clean the tips of the fingers, rub rotationally backwards and forwards with clasped fingers of right hand in left palm, and vice versa. Rinse hands thoroughly with running water. Dry hands thoroughly with a single-use towel. If the tap is not elbow-operated, use this towel to turn off the tap without touching it directly. Your hands are now clean and safe.
Now you know. And I love practicing all those new moves in my hand washing. We got the fingers this way, we got the end of the tips, it's fantastic. And with this newfound knowledge, I washed my hands, WHO style. I grabbed a pencil and a piece of scrap paper. I sat at my kitchen table and wrote out the words of our 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And I stared hard at that sentence, and I circled 3 words: respect, interdependent, and existence. And I allowed each word to seep into my mind and heart, and I was reminded of a Buddhist philosophy class in college, and one of the core teachings of that religion, the concept of interdependent origination or dependent arising, succinctly stated by the Buddha in the discourse of causal relations: When this is present, that comes to be. From the arising of this, that arises. When this is absent, that does not come to be. On the cessation of this, that ceases. Or even more succinctly, consider the insight from proto-environmentalist John Muir. Quote, "When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything in the universe." In scientific terms, you could consider the first law of thermodynamics, the conservation of energy, that the total energy of an isolated system is constant, that energy can be transformed from one form to another, but it cannot be created nor destroyed. So from the arising of this, that arises. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Core teachings of religion, science, and the natural world. Now, if nothing else, this novel coronavirus and the impact that it's having on our public health systems has taught every government on every level, as well as multinational corporations, small businesses, and every person on the planet, the interconnected and interdependent web of human systems and infrastructures. The abstract concept of interdependent web has become very concrete, as in Allison lost her stagehand job because the theaters are closed to protect the community health. There is a field hospital in Central Park in New York City. Or this headline from Newsweek on March 27. More than 50 doctors in Italy have now died from coronavirus. This pandemic is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And along with the fierce and fearless science, I believe that we need our religious practice, Unitarian Universalism, to help navigate the way. I look to our seventh principle for guidance and strength, and I want to propose that we adopt a formerly mundane task and infuse it with religious meaning. Now, I realize that Unitarian Universalists, they are not long on religious ritual, but please hear me out. The ritual that I'm proposing is rooted in science, and it's practiced with sublime respect for our interdependence. I propose that we wash our hands religiously, not just regularly, religiously, by which I mean approach the task with heightened attention and realize that your life has brought you to this moment, and this is where and when your lively heart beats. Bless the infrastructure and the engineering genius that allows clean, warm water to be delivered to you at the touch of a handle or the turn of a knob. Billions of people on this planet do not have such access to the miracle of clean water. So while keeping our hands clean in this moment, let us also commit to the fight for clean water as a universal human right. Feel your hands moisten. Feel that soap froth and slide. How many millions of nerve endings are lighting up your brain and allowing you to feel warmth and wetness and slipperiness. As you begin to wash your hands, follow the guidelines put forth by the World Health Organization, and while doing so, think of the oldest person that you have ever known, and then think of the youngest person that you have met this year. Realize that you are present at this flowing clean water in the middle of a 200-year moment that the oldest person that you have ever met was likely born in the early 1900s or earlier, before the 1918 pandemic, and the youngest person, we hope, destined to live long beyond our 2020 pandemic. So here, now, sheltering in place, celebrate the miracle of your hands that touch and grip and hold and caress the world, hands that clasp and cusp the world. Wash your hands religiously with love and attention, and while doing so, say aloud our seventh principle: respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which these hands are a part. In this way, we wash our hands religiously, caring for ourselves and the broader community. And together, let us name this new UU ritual with the acronym WASH. We are starting here. We are starting here. We are starting now. We wash these hands, connected to our interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Amen.
Please join in singing our closing song, We Would Be One. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning of which our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
And now it's time to extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again. Our benediction this morning, a beautiful little poem by Antonio Machado. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up. And also, let us not leave without being reminded of the words of our beloved Maud from the movie Harold and Maude. Go out and love some more. And to close our service, the postlude, a ragtime march and two-step entitled Just Ask Me by Chaz Hunter, played by Pat Rodgers.